So it's always kind of a sad thing when you see self-implosion, right? It's whenever you see your favorite sports team on a great lead in a game, or your favorite athlete doing something really, really incredible with their life and on a trajectory for an outstanding career, and all of a sudden something comes crashing down. They just can't seem to make the right play at the right time, and it dismantles right before your very eyes. I'll never forget things like watching Alabama play against Auburn one year, and there was a certain situation where Alabama was up by about 30. And in this situation, they go into halftime, and it was like two different teams. It was like they traded jerseys coming out. And Alabama on the second half could not do anything right. They fumbled. They turned the ball over. They threw interceptions. They did everything wrong. And Auburn gets on the comeback trail and ends up coming back, scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, and coming back on Alabama to win. A lot of people call that the Cam back, because Cam Newton was the Auburn quarterback to which everything is granted. And great quarterback he was, but it was Alabama's deficiency in finishing that game that caused them to dismantle and implode and self-destruct. And so I want to tell you this. There's another little story I want to say about this one person in particular named Mad Mike Hughes. Mad Mike is a famous flat earther. And flat earthers, if you're not familiar with the term, Rhett Chrome could help you out. If he's watching this, you might can send him an email or a text or something. But flat earthers believe that the earth is flat, not a spherical ball planet shape that we're used to. And they believe that if you got to a certain point in the sky, you would be able to see that this is, in fact, true, that it's just a disk. And there's no roundness to it. In fact, if you get to the edge, you just fall right off. It's, to say the least, it's an incredible belief. And they try to use religious rhetoric to communicate that. They try to use Bible. They try to use other religions and their sacred texts to push this idea that the earth is flat instead of round. Well, one of the most famous of this belief system is Mike Hughes, and they called him Mad Mike because he was a stuntman and rocket builder. And he would build these self-propelled, like steam-powered rockets that would propel him hundreds, then thousands, miles into the air so that he could try to check out the edge of the world. He didn't necessarily think he needed to get to space to check it out. He just thought if he got high enough, he would be able to see enough of the world to where he would see the drop-off and what he needed to see, and he would be able to prove to everyone that the earth was flat. Well, finally, determined to build a rocket that would do what he needed it to do, he built a rocket that launched him right into the ground. He built a rocket that upon takeoff, the parachute ripped off. And this was all self-built. This is not like he had an army of engineers working with him. This was a stunt man who built his own rockets. It was fortunate for him that he had not been killed before this, obviously. But on this particular occasion, he had built the rocket that he decided was going to be the rocket to prove his whole theory of flat earth. And it launched him, and the parachute, his main parachute, ripped off at launch. Everyone bystanding saw the parachute was gone, and they knew that trouble was at hand. And Mad Mike flies up in the air, and I don't know that he went as far or as straight as he thought he was going to go. And none of his extra parachutes, he had secondary and tertiary parachutes, and they didn't deploy. And Mad Mike ended up on the ground as the instrument of his own demise. The theory of Earth being flat and his continuing and persistent pursuit to prove that theory was the instrument of his own self-destruction. And I want you to know that while there's nothing inherently evil about Mad Mike Hughes and his rockets, the evil that is rampant in the world, will soon do the same thing, and it will self-destruct. That's where we're at in Revelation 17. If you've got a Bible and you're turning there, God will eventually plant it in the heart of everyone who is evil and against him to turn against themselves. And we're going to read a little bit about that. I used to have a teacher. I was actually a pastor at a church, but I would go into a group to where there was this couple that would teach, and it was a Sunday school class, and we would go in, and it was a Bible study, and we loved the people there, and we loved this particular couple that taught, and they had a statement that they would make over and over, and I'll never forget it. It was, you're going to do things God's way, or you're going to do things God's way. And they would repeat that almost every Sunday. And I loved it because it was so true. And we're going to find out exactly what that means right here in Revelation chapter 17. I'm going to read a few verses. We're not going to read the whole chapter. It's very short. Read it on your own. It's a little graphic. So, be careful with how you read it and where your mind goes when you read it. But at the same time, we know that the Bible is difficult sometimes. We know that the Bible can be scary sometimes. We know that the Bible can be provocative at sometimes. But it's all because of what God is trying to communicate to us through His Word. And so the language in Revelation 17 is very strong, let me warn you. But we're going to read the main parts that will give us perspective on the truth of God's Word. There's a lot of symbolism. There's going to be a lot of things going on, and we're not going to worry about getting into all of that today. I'm going to try to pick apart a couple of truths to give you today. So, let's read Revelation 17, 1, and then 3 through 7. He says in chapter 17, verse 1, "Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, 'Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute, who is seated on many waters.'" And then let's go down to verse 3. "And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names. And it had 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and the earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled greatly. But the angel said to me, 'Why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her.'" So let's stop right there. I want you to know 2 things. I'm going to really try to interpret the symbols really quickly for you so that we can get to the truth even quicker. So first of all, this is the prostitute and the beast are a coupling of religious belief seduced with immorality coupled with political power. So you've got immoral belief system. Okay, think like the pagan world of the Romans. You've got that, this very secularized version of religion. And then you've got it coupled with political power. The political power loves the secular mode of belief, and that empowers the political structure. In fact, they're able to stay in power because of the lusts of the people that the political power is feeding. The kingdoms of this world are feeding off of this great prostitute, which is a pagan belief system. In fact, it's going to be masked as, because remember, this is the false trinity we're talking about. The beasts and everything, they come from the dragon and the beast, Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. And because of these, they look a little bit like Christianity. But they're twisted. They're very twisted and mangled. And so this version of Christianity is very secularized. It's very promiscuous. It's very. It allows for all kind of things because it has been elevated to a place of power and prominence and wealth and status. You see that the great prostitute has in her hands a golden cup full of the immorality and pearls and jewels and all of these things adorning her. It's because she represents all of the things that Christianity could be, or religion could be, if it accepts the things of this world wholeheartedly. I'm not saying there's anything against having a little bit of wealth. I'm not saying there's anything against having